Rama, Hare Hare, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. So we do one conference or two conferences a week internationally. Hacemos uno o dos conferencias a la semana internacionalmente. So we have our nice little yay. The group here. Un grupo grande aquí. Sí, está bien. So just so when people have come through here, they have the opportunity to connect to these conferences when they're not physically here. Entonces, esa da la oportunidad para todos que no, cuando no podemos estar juntos, vernos y seguir estudiando. So we'll read chapter 2, text 22, capítulo 2, texto, no, tú vas a ver. Busca en capítulo 2, número 22. Ese es 1. Ese es 2. Entonces busca 2. Ese mira, 44. Entonces devuélvete. Okay, so this verse is a really famous verse. Ese es un verso super famoso and really important. Y muy importante. So I'll read it in English, then in Spanish. Primero en inglés, después en español. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones.
La Suprema Personalidad de Dios dijo, mi querido Arjuna, ¿este? ¿Es el 2, texto 2?
Texto 22.
22. Lo siento, estaba leyendo el 2. Sorry. Pero acá, 19, 22. Así como una persona se pone ropa nueva y se desecha la vieja, asimismo el alma acepta nuevos cuerpos materiales, desechando los viejos e inversibles.
Okay, so this is a really important point of how the soul takes on a body and then leaves this body and then takes on another body. Entonces, esa es la información que Krishna está compartiendo con Arjuna, como el alma toma un cuerpo y después deja este cuerpo y toma otro cuerpo. But he's explaining it as if we're putting on new clothes. So it's like we're putting on this clothes today and then tomorrow we put on a different outfit. Y lo está explicando como un cambio de ropa. Hoy elegimos poner esta ropa y mañana vamos a poner otra ropa. So if you've thought of all the different styles of clothing that you've put on in your life, piensa en todos los diferentes estilos de ropa que hayas puesto en tu vida, right? Like, I remember when I went through like my very hippie phases. I went through a hippie phase without knowing what a hippie was because I was just like in the middle of nowhere in Maine in the United States. So I just like buy used clothing and put it on, right? And like I would pierce my fingernail with like these little like hook thingies. Entonces me acuerdo que no sabía que era un hippie porque estaba en Maine donde no habían hippies y simplemente compré ropa usada y lo puse y después puse como piercings así en mis uñas, right? So think of like, you know, who here has gone through which phases? What phases have you guys gone through? ¿Qué fases ustedes han pasado? Anybody has passed through a funny stage, like shaving the head or kind of punk, hardcore? Anybody went through like goth? Oh, you so goth? I don't know what people dress like. Goth. Yeah, that's right. Like the dreadlocks, aquí. I'm looking at Prema, Laura, and Amrita. I'm sure you've been through a lot of phases. Ustedes han pasado por muchas fases. They're shaking their heads. Right? And so That's the same thing with the soul taking on different bodies, right? And just like we take on a phase and we feel like it's everything, right? Nosotros tomamos una fase de la vida y pensamos que es todo, right? You're like, I'm going to be punk forever. Yo voy a ser punk para siempre, right? Or even when we put on tattoos, right? Like you put on a tattoo and you're like, yes, this is my identity, right? Pones este tatuaje when you're like 16 years old, tienes 16 años y piensas, esa es mi identidad, ¿no? And then you get to like 25 and you're like, you get to 25 and then you're like, what? Why did I put on that tattoo, right? You're like, Jonathan forever. Jonathan para siempre. Right? And then Jonathan like doesn't even look at you anymore. Right? Jonathan ya no te mira. Right. So we get obviously this is like superficial. There's can be a lot of heart sentiment to connect to what we identify with, especially with our body. Entonces esto lo estoy hablando como muy superficial porque sabemos que tenemos mucho apego a esas identificaciones con nuestro cuerpo. So we attach not only to our body, but even to our clothes that we're wearing, right? So if you have spent a lot of money on something or it has a lot of sentimental value and you lose it or somebody paints it, how will you feel? Cuando hayas pagado mucho dinero para una ropa o esa ropa tiene mucho valor, ¿cómo te sientes si alguien lo destruye o lo pierdes? How do you feel? Like, let's be honest, siendo honestos. It's like the only pair of barefoot shoes that you have. Es la única par de zapatos así descalzos que has comprado, or I don't know, like brand, right? Una marca, right? And the dog takes it, which has happened here. Y a veces los perros vienen y se llevan los zapatos. Like, everybody's like, Cello's the worker here. We're like, right? Cello, vaya buscar el zapato, right? And Cello always finds the shoe. He knows if it's over in that neighborhood or in that neighborhood. He's just connected with like everything here in this whole valley. Cello está conectado con tacos en este valle, ¿no? Por vivir aquí, siempre encuentra el zapato, right? But how do we feel? And it's like this, it's this loss, es un duelo, right? And we're just talking about something material that really can be replaced, right? And will not last forever. No piece of clothing will last forever. Y eso es un duelo que sentimos por algo temporal que no va a durar para siempre, right? Or with my kids, they're always growing out of their clothes. Siama put on one of her, onesie pajamas yesterday, and she's like, Siama puso como una pijama entera y dice, ya no entro, yeah. And she's like, I'm like, yeah, you're growing. No, yo, claro, no te va a entrar, estás creciendo. She's growing so fast, está creciendo rápido. I'm like buying new clothes every 3 months, right? Tengo que comprar ropa nueva cada 3 meses. But why do we attach? ¿Por qué nosotros apegamos a esa ropa? Why do we attach to this clothing? Because when we have something nice, we feel like that's what gives us happiness. Porque cuando tenemos algo como bonito, pensamos que eso nos va a dar felicidad, right?
Compré 2 pares siempre.
He always buys 2
No
sets
sé
of
si voy a
pairs.
no sé si voy a volver a encontrar el mismo.
Yeah, I do actually say, like, if I find something, I'm like, actually, I would rather just wear the same outfits each day if it really serves me, right? So yeah, if it's good, I'm like, well, I'll just get like 3 of those or 2 of those, right? Like my skirts I usually wear in the temple, I got one, wore it for a year, and I was like, I'm going back to the store. And I'm like, I don't even care the price because those work, right? Yeah. Entonces, yo con las faldas que pongo muchas veces en el templo, tenía una para un año. Y dije, ay, eso me sirve también. Entonces fui a la tienda, no me importaba cuánto costaba, era como, eso voy a usar. Compré 2 más de diferentes como tonos de claro. So I have like 3 of different clear colors. I don't know if you noticed, but when I just like throw on a skirt, it's just like, it's the same skirt, right? But when you get something or when kids get new clothing, remember when you were a kid, it's like, wow! Cuando ustedes eran niños y recibieron una ropa nueva, es una celebración. My kids are always like, and then they have to put it on. No, mis niñas siempre tienen que vestirse en esa ropa por los próximos días, right? And Radike will cry, and something will always happen to the new clothes, right? Radike siempre llora y algo siempre pasa esta ropa, right? It's like, and Radike is like, oh, I got it stained, right? I'm like, you're a kid, you get everything stained, right? Entonces, ay, no, lo manché. Yo como, eres una niña, manchas todo, ¿no? Siempre es como, el juguete nuevo se rompe, right? Or her new, Radike just has the worst luck with this stuff. It's always like she gets a new toy and then it breaks, right? Entonces, con Raddy, que la chiquita recibe un juguete nuevo y se rompe. And she's like, ah, y empieza a llorar, right? And I'm just like, nothing here is forever except for the soul. This is all temporal. Why are you crying? I'm like preaching to a 4-year-old, right? Estoy predicando a una niña de 4 años y le estoy diciendo, ¿por qué lloras? No, todas esas cosas son temporales. No te pegas a tus juguetes. Y ella me mira go, and she's just looking at me like, Mom, that no matter what you say, it still hurts, right? No importa lo que digas, mamá, todavía duele, right? And so we are attached to our body because we think our body will give us happiness, right? Nosotros estamos apegados a nuestro cuerpo porque pensamos que este cuerpo nos va a dar la felicidad. We're attached to our things because at one point in time, our mind said, had this desire that said, if I get this thing, I will be happy. Right? Entonces, ¿por qué sufrimos? Porque pensamos que nuestro cuerpo nos va a dar felicidad y pensamos que las cosas que conseguimos nos van a dar felicidad. En algún momento tuvimos un deseo hacia esta cosa, pensando que si consigo esta cosa voy a estar feliz, right? So it's this attachment to material things for our happiness. Es un apego a cosas materiales para nuestra felicidad. But if we are able to look at everything here as just lent to us as temporal, that's just here for our use for a certain amount of time, right? We won't get so attached. Si podemos ver que todo eso es temporal y está aquí para nuestro uso por una temporada, no nos vamos a pegar tanto. So it's like when you go to a hotel room, you usually don't buy sheets for the hotel room. You don't put some plants up in the hotel room because you're like, I'm just here for a short amount of time, right? Entonces, cuando ya entras, cuando te quedas en un hotel, no es que vayas comprando la plantita, la matita para ir decorando tu hotel, no compras sábanas nuevas porque tú sabes que no vas a estar ahí para siempre. It's the same with this world that we're in. Es lo mismo con este mundo en que estamos. Right? But what we do, we start buying things to make us feel like we're more secure. Empezamos a comprar cosas porque nos hacen sentir que estamos como más seguros. I have this tendency to be a little bit more in my upper chakras and not so grounded. So it's hard for me to make like in my own space. Like if it's for other people, I'll do it, but in my own space, it always feels like an Airbnb. Por donde yo vivo, siempre siento que estoy en un Airbnb porque pues no tengo tanta energía en mis primeros chakras, entonces me cuesta estar comprando, como poniendo este detalles, invirtiendo un espacio. So we built this house. It took about like 10 years to get the house that we have. Demoró como 10 años para tener la casa que tenemos aquí. And then I got it. I'm like, okay, so like it just always just feels like it's this place that Krishna has just given us to serve, to like be comfortable, just comfortable enough in to serve, right? And when he gave us this house, I said, oh my God, Krishna, you're going to send a lot of people because you want us to be like really good here because you're making us more comfortable. It wasn't like, now I have this home in the Sacred Valley that everybody's dreamed of. It was like, okay, now what's going to happen? You're sending people, aren't you? Because you want me and my kids to be more comfortable. Right? Entonces, el momento que recibí esta casa que tenemos aquí, que demoró como 10 años en conseguir, yo dije, uy, Krishna, va a estar mandando mucha gente, por eso me estás dando una casa, ¿no? Y quieres que yo esté más cómoda a mis hijas para poder servir mejor desde un lugar como de mejor bienestar. No pensé, oh, ya tengo mi casa en el Valle Sagrado, que todos quieren su casa, todos los gringos quieren su casa en el Valle Sagrado, ¿no? It was like, whew, okay, like, I'm getting ready now. You're getting me ready, I'm getting ready, ¿no? Tú me estás preparando y ahora me estoy preparando, right? So we never take things as, this is mine. Right? Nunca tomamos nada como si fuera nuestro. And little by little, I was like, so I'm always trying to make it feel like I'm more here because that's my imbalance. It's kind of like because we travel every 2 months or so, nosotros viajamos cada 2 meses. So para mí es un reto hacerle sentir que estamos acá. So I'm like, I'm like buying the sheets for the kids and like, I'm trying to make them feel like their first chakras are balanced and grounded and they have a good stable foundation, right? When I just feel like I'm just in the air all the time and just like serving, right? I'm just like as long as I have like, I'm warm, I'm comfortable, I have enough clothing to put on, that's okay, right? Entonces para mí es como si tengo suficiente ropa para hacer mi servicio, estoy caliente y tengo una cama así cómoda para dormir. Yeah, right. But the kids need more because the first chakra is your foundation, right? Those first 7 years, los niños necesitan más porque el primer chakra es su fundamento, right? This is the foundation. They need to feel like I have stability and I have routine. Mis hijas necesitan sentir que yo tengo estabilidad, tengo rutina, right? So how do I really work with this feeling of like, I'm just in these spaces because they're being lent to us to serve, right? I'm just a channel for whatever's supposed to be happening here. Entonces, ¿cómo equilibramos estar en este mundo material, pero sabiendo y hasta con esa realización que somos almas y simplemente estamos aquí, todo lo que nos llega es realmente está prestado para servir, right? Well, as my guru says, it's like you're fishing, but you don't get wet. Como mi guru dice, es como si estuviera pescando, pero no te mojas, right? So it's like you have your duty and you live out your duty, right? Just to that point. You don't go beyond. Vives tu dharma y tus responsabilidades, pero no sobrepases esa línea, right? So I'm not like, I don't know, giving my kids this whole false reality. I'm just giving them enough for them, like what kids need, right? I'm not overdoing it. They have all these dolls that you have to get like the series of dolls. And I'm like, you don't need the series of dolls. That's marketing, right? That's them just trying to get money off of you, ¿no? Entonces las niñas siempre quieren comprar su serie de muñecas, ¿no? Y yo siempre les estoy predicando, ese es el marketing, no tienes que caerte en eso, solamente te quieren aprovechar para sacar más dinero, right? So just like we do need to take care of this temple that we have here. Tenemos que cuidar este templo, lo que tenemos aquí. And that's what the Bhakti Yoga School really focuses on. Eso es lo que nos enfocamos aquí en el Bhakti Yoga School. It's all these tools to really get to know ourselves well in this incarnation. Todas esas herramientas para conocernos bien esta encarnación. So we'll soon be getting to more of those tools aquí en el curso. Vamos a ver más de esas herramientas, right? We have the Vedic astrology, the human design, the yoga, like really listening, yoga practice, aligning, right? So we're like, figure out your body here, right? Figure out your mind here, figure out your emotions here, like figure out your blueprint here. This is important. Entonces vamos a darles mucha información de cómo cuidar este cuerpo, mente, tus emociones y entenderte. Por eso entramos en el diseño humano, la información védica, el yoga con alimentos, and even this information, like we're studying what's going on here in this world, right? We're figuring this out. We're like, where are we? Entonces estamos estudiando aquí, estamos pensando, ¿dónde estoy yo en este mundo material, right? So we're getting into self-understanding. Estamos entrando en autoconocimiento, okay? And that's the first step. Ese es el primer paso, okay? And to be empowered in that, but not enter into your ego with that. So we stay humble. Entonces, no entrar, como empoderarnos en eso, pero no entrar en el ego. Mantenernos humildes siempre con eso, right? Because we're just vehicles. Somos vehículos, right? And what came to me in my meditation this morning it was like Krishna dancing on my tongue. En mi meditación esa mañana sentí Krishna bailando en mi lengua. And what does that mean? ¿Qué significa eso? Ahora, Haribon. And because a lot of times we think we are the doers, porque muchas veces nosotros pensamos que nosotros somos los que hacen, somos los que hacen todo, ¿no? We take this we take responsibility, right? We're like, it's my strength, it's my capability that's allowing this to happen, right? Muchas veces sentimos que es mi capacidad. my my friend students from all over the world. Aura's the one that fixed the manual this last time when she's here. Gracias por el manual, por el manual. So we take on this ownership, ¿no? Nosotros pensamos que nosotros somos los que está haciendo todo, right? But really, it's just like the divine is coming through us. Pero realmente la divinidad está como entrando por nosotros y ya haciendo todo, right? So, but if we have, but because our ego, our self-esteem is so weak, right? because just in this society, you know, it's just like holding us down always. We're never good enough. Aquí en esa sociedad estamos entrenados que no somos suficientes, right? La autoestima está bajito. So we get one thing, we're like, y hacemos algo bueno y pensamos, uy, lo logré, ¿no? And you're like, and you want somebody to recognize it, right? Y quieres que alguien lo reconozca. I have a really like my mom's like my number one fan. Mi mamá es mi fan número uno. So I'm used to it like from childhood. She's always just like, good job. And she, you know, she's always writing me messages like, you're starting your course, you know, like, I know you'll do great. Mi mamá siempre es mi fan número uno, ¿no? Y siempre me escribe antes de un curso, yo sé que lo vas a hacer súper bien, ¿no? Like, I'm accustomed even. I'm accustomed to having like that, like the cheerleader behind me. So last night I was like, I just felt really successful about a few things. I'm like, Chaitanya, can you just listen to me being happy about like these things that I did today? And I'm just like really happy about them. I'm like, can you just be my cheerleader for a second? Yo pedí anoche, después de un día donde sentí como exitosa de unas cosas, le dije, ay, Chaitanya, puedes como escucharme y simplemente ser mi porista un momento y como, because it's nice to feel like to keep us going, it's nice to have somebody or some people there who can recognize you, right? Para mantenernos yendo adelante, es como bonito tener alguien o unas personas ahí que te reconozcan, ¿no? Y diciendo, sí, tú puedes, ¿no? Yo creo en ti, right? I believe in you. But yeah,
I feel like through socialization, because we've all gone through it, through that we're judged so much. So like in like deep inside, we have that like lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
We were judged in our early days so much.
so much, right? And that's just the state of everyone, pretty much, right? And the more recognition we need, the more of a hurt child we are usually. Y lo más reconocimiento que necesitamos muchas veces es porque estamos muy heridos como niños, right? But it can also come from a past life. Puede venir de una vida pasada. So when we start to look at astrology, we'll see our sun planet, and our sun planet, if it's a little bit weak, that's our self-esteem. So we're already kind of like, we're already sensitive there. Or we'll go into factors in life that will create more of more pressure towards a self-esteem, but it's already kind of predestined, right? Entonces también puede venir de vidas pasadas nuestra autoestima. Entonces, viendo en astrología védica el sol, podemos ver ya si venimos con el autoestima un poquito debilitado o si vamos a traer situaciones que nos van a hacer sentir como con el autoestima más bajito. Okay, so we know this and we need this recognition, and we, you know, and even just reflections of like people reading our charts or just like, I don't know, looking at you or your therapist saying like, you're doing good, right? You're fine, or this is who you are, ¿no? Entonces necesitamos eso, necesitamos las personas ahí, los terapeutas, los que te van a ver tu carta y reflejar, yo te veo, ¿no? Para que tú mismo te puedes ver, so that you yourself can see yourself, right? And that is called our swadharma. Our swadharma, like SWA or SBA, swadharma. So our swadharma is just like what we're here to do. What's our constitution? Like, what is our blueprint? ¿Qué es nuestra huella karmática, nuestra constitución de movernos en este mundo? And so through this practice of yoga, self-study, we're getting closer to that, right? A través de este práctica yoga, autoestudio, estamos acercando eso, right? And then we surrender it. De ahí lo rendimos. We release it. De ahí lo soltamos. So we're just here. We're doing our work. We're doing our service. We're doing what we're here to do, but we don't feel lost because we're just, it's like you found you're a train and you found your track, right? Entonces no te sientes perdido porque ya eres como un tren y has encontrado tu carril, right? And so you're just doing your thing, but it doesn't feel like robotic. Pero no se siente robótico. It's just like, this is what I'm here to do. And you're doing something that it's like right livelihood. You're making enough money doing it. You feel like you're changing the world in some way doing what you're doing, right? You're doing something you believe in. Entonces, eso es como right livelihood. ¿Cómo diría right livelihood? Como
la luz correcta, ¿no?
Pero como,
right
como
light.
right livelihood, como, ahora, how would you say like,
To make a living, ¿no?
how would you say right livelihood?
Estilo de vida correcto.
Sí, como bondadoso.
Como ser
Vi- right livelihood? I don't know.
No, okay. No, but not exactly. I don't think there's like a, yeah, es como
It's not
vivir,
inspiration.
es como sí, es como tener suficiente dinero haciendo lo que estás haciendo y trabajando en algo que realmente te gusta y donde estás realmente sintiendo que estás cambiando este mundo en una forma, haciendo lo que te gusta, right?
Porque no sientes que trabajas.
Right, it's,
Yo siempre
yeah.
digo eso porque mi trabajo normalmente es en el monte, grabando, pagan mucho,
You don't feel
pero
like you're working.
no voy a trabajar nunca, ¿sabes?
Uh-huh.
Voy a disfrutar del monte.
So he's giving his example of he just films in the mountains. So it's just like, right? And yeah, that some jobs might feel a little bit heavy, but you know, like it's worth it. Hay unos trabajos que sienten un poquito pesados, pero sabes que eso vale la pena hacerlo. And it's not taking too much out of you. Y no te está matando, right? If it's killing you, probably not right livelihood. Si te está matando, hay que ajustar algo. You have to adjust something, right? You should feel satisfied and successful. Debes sentirte satisfechos y exitosos, right? The other day I was talking with Chaitanya Mukti and I was like, ooh, time's almost up. I've got to go work. But I was talking about like my like behind the scenes work that I do online and stuff. Like none of this that I do with you guys feel like work. To me, this is vacation. Entonces, ayer, antes yo estaba hablando con Mukti, Chaitanya y yo como, estamos en el desayuno y dije, "Oh, ya tengo que irme, tengo que trabajar, ¿no? Pero no estaba hablando de venir a enseñar el curso. Para mí enseñar un curso es estar con ustedes, es tan divertido, es como, son vacaciones. Like, we get to just like talk about great themes with beautiful people who want to like evolve, right? Podemos conversar de temas lindísimas, con personas lindísimas y personas que quieren evolucionarse. Like, this is nectar, you know? After like wash poop out of some pants, that's a little bit more work, right? Tengo que sacar popó de un pantalón, or I have to be like, you know, like a lot on the internet, like reorganizing web pages. I like it. It feels important, but it's work, right? I don't love being on the computer, but if I'm able to do that, if that's like a God-given gift, I flow with it, right? Entonces también si Dios me dio la capacidad de trabajar en la parte que hago con marketing o de, no sé, editando las páginas, hablando con personas, pesa un poquito porque no me gusta estar en el computador, pero lo hago y por lo menos, pues no me pesa mucho, me gusta que pueda hacer eso. Y si Dios me dio ese don, pues lo hago, right? So it's also seeing what are your God-given gifts? ¿Qué son tus dones que Dios te dio, right? And I remember when I was a teen, I was like, you know, I was a really good athlete and I was a really good swimmer too, right? Cuando yo era adolescente, yo era una atleta súper buena, ¿no? Y también de natación. Uh-huh. And I would in summer camp, I'd be like, you know, in all like the summer camp activities, they'd always put me to be like, you know, I'd always be saving the day, like running, bring the flag from there to there, and then swimming like, you know, like a crazy machine in the lake. And everybody, you know, I'd be like, you know, the superstar like athlete, right? Entonces me acuerdo en el campamento de verano, yo siempre me pusieron en todas las competencias, hacía correr y siempre era la más rápida en correr y natación y así en el lago. And I thought it was me. Yo pensé que era yo. I was like, I'm the great swimmer, you know, I'm the great runner. Yo soy la mejor así en natación, de correr también. And then when I had children and I started to pay money for their swim classes, I was like, thanks, mom. Thanks, dad. Y cuando empecé a tener hijos, empecé a pagar sus clases de natación, dije a mis papás, gracias, mamá, gracias, papá. Right? It's like if they hadn't paid money for my swim classes, they hadn't like, if that wasn't a value in their life, I wouldn't have become a good swimmer, right? And they always, there's like constant just swim classes and like support in my sports, right? Era apoyo de mis papás para aprender a nadar bien, ¿no? Y correr, todo era mis papás apoyándome, right? It's my karma, but my parents were in action, right? Era mi karma, pero era como la acción de mis papás, right? So this is the same thing. When we're here in this world and we have all these skills and we're like, oh, I'm good at that, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, we can say, thanks God, right? Or thanks divine, whatever name, right? Entonces cuando somos buenos en algo, podemos agradecer a la divinidad, ¿no? Cualquier nombre que quieres poner a la divinidad. It's never just us, like, it's just me doing this, right? Nunca soy yo haciendo eso, right? And even like when we're doing courses, you know, I'm always surprised who's going to show up, right? Siempre es una sorpresa para ver quién va a venir a un curso, right? But if I were to go into my ego, I'd be like, yeah, I spoke to that person, right? And they signed up, right? That's what it looks like, right? Or I fixed I don't know, the book yoga retreats thing so it really reflects us. I put the photo on, right? Like I'm doing all these actions. I'm doing all these actions. So uno puede decir que yo estoy haciendo la acción de editar esta página, poner una foto ahí, hablar con una persona para que llegue a un curso. But it's not me. Because whoever's meant to show up, especially in a spiritual situation, are going to show up, regardless of what I'm doing, right? Entonces, las personas que realmente es predestinado que vengan aquí a esta situación, especialmente un curso que es bastante espiritual, de autoconocerse, van a llegar. But then if Krishna like pushes me with my skills to do some stuff, no, but he's the fire behind the scenes, you know? If he's giving me these skills, so then people find out what we're doing, you know, but it's not me, right? I'm only this vehicle. Entonces, si Krishna es como el fuego detrás de mis acciones. Y si Krishna me ha dado esas herramientas que va a jalar la gente y viene, no, pero no soy yo, ese es Krishna que me ha dado todo. Krishna has given me everything, right? So there's this idea with our bodies, right, of being attached to our identity. And when our identity gets injured, it can even hurt more than our body. Cuando la identidad está herido, eso puede doler más que el cuerpo doliendo, right? So if you think I don't know, if you think you're good at something and then you fail, or it doesn't happen the way that you thought, you're going to suffer, right? Or if somebody picks at, you're not a nice person or something, right? And you're like, no, I'm the nice person, right? Like whatever identifiers we have, we attach them a lot times even more than our body. Entonces, nosotros nos apegamos más con el cuerpo energético, con el ego, la identidad. Y si alguien nos ataca ese ego e identidad, hasta podemos sufrir más, right? So how can we stand and see this body as a gift, but not attach ourselves to it? ¿Cómo podemos ver este cuerpo como un regalo, pero no nos apegamos a eso? That's like number one, right? So just by doing the yoga practice, we will create less attachment to this body. There's like this self-care, but then we realize it's not ours. It's just being given to us for some duty here, right? To help. Entonces, es ver a través de las prácticas, va a empezar realmente desapegarnos a este cuerpo y a esta identidad. Like the practice in itself will do that. La práctica en sí lo va a hacer, okay? And also just this education, right, of understanding the world we're in, esta educación en el mundo, de entender ese mundo que estamos. So it's kind of like you start to feel it happening, but then your mind arrives in this realization. Entonces uno lo siente, pero también es una realización interna. So this path is all about inner realization. Este camino se trata de la realización interna. It's never just like, these are ideas, you have to believe it. Nunca son ideas, tienes que verlo. But the more that you listen to it, it starts to take on. Hola, Diana. It starts to take on, like, it starts to make sense. ¿No? Con tiempo empieza a hacer sentido. And one time they asked our grandfather Guru, Srila Prabhupada, he was in an interview, and they were like, when he came to the West, he was in New York City, and he had all these disciples, and they went, from, and they started to leave their families, just like go live in ashrams. Entonces, cuando Srila Prabhupada llegó a Nueva York, muchos de sus discípulos empezaron a vivir con él o ir a comenzar otros ashrams, and they left their families. I mean, most of them were hippies, and they're just like in sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? They're looking for illumination, but in these temporal places that were quite destructive. Muchos de ellos one of the students is leaving a message of how she got to the ashram in Cali, and it was all this like yeah, So cute, Adriana. Gracias por compartirla. So she said like she found an ashram that was like there, and then but it turned out to be our ashram in Colombia, and then and it was Krishna desire to have me as her teacher. Very cute. So where was I saying? What was I saying? ¿Qué estaba diciendo?
Finding illumination in temporal.
Yeah. And so, entonces él tenía, los discípulos de Srila Prabhupada eran así como todos buscando sexo, drogas, rock and roll, buscando su iluminación para lugares temporales y destructivas. So Srila Prabhupada just went to the park and he was there just with his little symbols and in his robes from India, like monk robes. And he was just by the park in Thompson Square Park. And he was just like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. No, entonces Srila Prabhupada está ahí con sus símbolos en el parque de Nueva York y en su ropa de monje y simplemente empezó a cantar. And then all the hippies were like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then y todos los hippies cogieron sus instrumentos y de ahí ya empezaron a cantar, right? And they're like, this feels so good. Eso se siente tan rico, right? And I was sharing with Alex the other day that their slogan was chant Hare Krishna. No, what was it? Like the new high, chant Hare Krishna, ¿no? Entonces, uno de sus slogans era cantar Hare Krishna es como la nueva droga, ¿no? Or chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So you'll see on a lot of these bags where we hold our yapamalas, it'll actually say that still. Entonces, es otra cosa que decían era cantar Hare Krishna y ser feliz. And you'll see, we're showing her bag that says it as well. Hey, yours doesn't have it. We'll have to like put it there. Entonces, dice mucho de las voces de los yapamalas, cantar Hare Krishna, y seas feliz, right? But what type of happiness are we talking about? ¿Qué tipo de felicidad estamos hablando?
Trascendental, ¿no?
Transcendental. ¿Qué significa transcendental? Transcendental. What does that mean?
Que dura.
Que dura. ¿Hasta cuándo? Right. So it lasts. It's not dependent on these external factors because this external factors, we'll lose our clothes, we'll lose this body. Vamos a perder esa ropa, vamos a perder este cuerpo. It's just like changing outfits every day. Like we're reading here. Es como cambiando de ropa todos los días. Okay. But we do take care of our clothes, right? Pero cuidamos nuestra ropa. Okay. So little by little, the focus of our lives is our soul. Poco a poco, el enfoque de nuestras vidas se vuelve el alma. And how can we make decisions that are going to really be from the soul and really create just more spiritual decisions, right? More conscious decisions that aren't just me trying to seek material pleasure. So de cómo poco a poco podemos enfocar la mente y nuestras acciones y todo lo que estamos haciendo en la vida conectar con el alma, ¿no? Como cosas más espirituales, más conscientes. Esa es la idea, because you always have this choice. Siempre tienes esa opción. You're like, do I go towards material happiness or do I go towards spirituality, right? Voy hacia algo que es un deseo temporal material o voy hacia algo más espiritual, right? And so I wanted to say a point there. Que decía algo importante ahí. Spiritual. Oh, it was a good point. Any questions, preguntas?
Bueno, a veces era un
Yeah, I got it. Okay, yeah.
Es como que a veces tenemos ciertos deberes, ¿no? Como materiales. También.
Sí.
Pues, porque, claro, solamente ir por el mundo espiritual, bueno, en lo personal, me gusta mucho, es muy importante para mí, pero también siento que tengo ciertas pautas materiales que debo cumplir, ¿no?
Y eso,
Porque
y hay que
vivimos en
cumplir.
esta sociedad, ¿no?
Sí, hay que cumplir, pero debe ser con una intención espiritual detrás. Entonces, uno puede estar en una oficina y estar viviendo una experiencia espiritual. No significa que nos renunciamos y vamos a la cueva. So this is a really important point, and I think Laura and I were talking about this, that it's not when you get onto a spiritual path, it's not you're renouncing, your house. It's not like you go off into a cave somewhere and like necessarily. especially if you have work, you have a family, like kids, tienes trabajo, tienes hijos, right? You have duties, tenemos deberes, right? But behind it, you have a spiritual intention, yeah? Pero detrás tienes una intención espiritual, and you don't skip your spiritual practice for your material duties. Y no saltas tus prácticas espirituales por tus deberes materiales. And this is really common. No, I don't have time to meditate. No tengo tiempo para meditar. You pick up your phone, you start working. Coges tu celular, empiezas a trabajar. So we have to understand that this world works like a tree, being a tree with roots. Hay que entender que este mundo funciona como un árbol con sus raíces. So we need to actually water the roots of the tree. Tenemos que regar las raíces del árbol. That is your spiritual practice. In the morning, like you're doing things in your day that are spiritual and connecting and in gratitude to the divine. Estás haciendo tus prácticas diarias en gratitud a la divinidad. Es como regando las raíces del árbol. But what do we do in this material world? We actually start watering the fruits of the tree. As en mundo material, estamos regando los frutos del árbol. The fruits, like you're like, I need more money, so I'm going to work in the material realm to get more money. Necesito más dinero. Voy a trabajar en el plano material para tener más dinero. But if you just sit and meditate in the morning, you'll actually be more successful. Not thinking about getting more money, just being in gratitude and serving. You'll always have what you need. Si en la mañana meditas, estás en gratitud, ¿no? Estás en una relación amorosa con la divinidad, siempre vas a tener lo que necesites. Nunca va a haber escasez. You'll never have lack. You might not have like what you think you need. De pronto no vas a tener todo lo que piensas que necesitas para estar feliz, right? You might not have exactly what you think you need to be happy, but you'll have what you need and you'll have enough. And you'll have what's meant to come to you to serve. Siempre vas a tener lo que necesites, vas a tener suficiente y vas a tener lo que necesites para poder servir. Everything that comes to me, I'm like, oh, Krishna, you want me to move my life a little more in that direction? Like, oh, so I'm supposed to focus more on that? No, it's like if it's easy for me to buy something, like I said in the last conference here, after my Ayurveda course, I went to the mall and there was like my spice grinder, which is so super important for my Ayurveda courses. Like we eat stuff with very specific spice mixes the whole course. It broke at the end of the course. And I had brought it from the United States. I had this like crazy big adapter for it to work. And I went to the mall and it was just like a nice Peruvian, like nice priced spice grinder that I can buy anytime. I was like, ooh, it's a sign, right? It's a sign to keep on going with like my work in Peru, right? So how can everything be a sign to support? But if I couldn't find a spice grinder, I'd have to like, something wasn't flowing, maybe something would have to be a little bit different. And then in that same store, there was like electric stove to heat up my oil for my massages, which first of all, we haven't had regular electricity here until 6 months ago. Like we were like getting it from a neighbor. And so now it was the first time I could actually think of an electric stove. And it was in that same story. Like, it was like, oh, Krishna, you want me to do more massages, So it's like, how can we be guided instead of like grasping? And if we don't get it, it's not time. Entonces, ¿cómo podemos estar guiados en vez de agarrando? Si no fluye, no es tiempo. O nunca va a ser. Haribol, Satya.
Oh,
Entonces estaba dando ejemplos que les expliqué en la última conferencia de después de mi curso de Ayurveda se había dañado mi molino de especies que es súper importante para los cursos de Ayurveda y lo había traído de los Estados Unidos y no sabía dónde conseguirlo acá en Perú. Fui al mall y ahí estaba, buen precio, súper fácil con electricidad de acá en la misma tienda, una cocina eléctrica y justo llegó electricidad normal a este ashram hace 6 meses, entonces ni pude pensar en eso. Y esta estufa eléctrica para calentar los aceites cuando damos los masajes. Y dije, bueno, Krishna quiere que aquí nos enfocamos más en Ayurveda, ¿no? Entonces, así como ver todo como señales, no estar intentando agarrarnos a diferentes cosas. Okay. Any other questions? Últimas preguntas.
So how do we listen to that, or how can we hear this kind of things in this material world, in this chaotic world that we are living in right now? you're living here on this beautiful piece of land with all of the bird noises in the morning, and you can have your practice and blah blah blah. I'm living
It looks perfect, doesn't it?
Not disrespectful at all, but I'm
Yeah.
living in the street, like cars humping, and like
Yeah.
every morning it's like all this chaos. Of course, yeah, in America,
Everywhere.
it's everywhere.
Okay, so how to do it, right? Entonces ella está preguntando, ella le está diciendo, tú vives en el ashram con los pájaros, así, todo perfecto, ¿no? Y eso es fácil para ti, right? So, entonces, ¿cómo hacerlo cuando uno vive en un mundo no tan fácil? Well, first we have to understand that if there's not external noise, there can be internal noise. Hay que entender que primero, si no hay ruido externo, puede haber ruido interno. ¿Ya? So wherever you are, you can be in a place that's heaven and your mind can bring you into hell. I've been here in this exact place and been in hell 100% because my mind was in that reality here in this place. So our environment, it can be an excuse for why we feel a certain way. Yeah. But we can try to escape that place and we'll still have those same mental fluctuations and emotions. Right. So we can't escape our mind and our emotions. Yeah, so that's number one. No podemos escapar nuestra mente y emociones. Yo puedo estar aquí en este ashram tan bonito, tan perfecto, y he estado en el cielo unos momentos y he estado en el infierno aquí también en unos momentos, porque la mente no cambia por donde vayas. Right, so our mind doesn't change where we go. Okay. Second of all, you can attract wherever you go more noise. You can attract people that challenge you. No, puedes atraer por donde vayas una persona que te hace sufrir así o te mira todo el día así o su energía te desafía. So you can attract one person, that perfect space that looks at you funny or that touches all your buttons and their energy just makes you feel off. You can be in paradise and that one person shows up, or a mosquito. Un mosquito, right? So in this material world, there's always going to be things that challenge us, no matter where you are. En ese mundo material siempre vamos a tener algo que nos va a desafiar, no importa donde estemos, right? But then in terms of choosing your environment, we can understand we can choose our environment. Podemos entender que sí podemos elegir nuestro ambiente. And for many of you, you're traveling the world to try to find like what does feel good for you, what would be a good environment for you. Y para muchos de ustedes pueden elegir, como por eso están viajando el mundo buscando qué sería un buen ambiente para ti. So we see different environments, and then as we start to enter more into yoga, maybe what we want for our environment, and not only environment, but people around us, the desire changes, right? So el deseo de qué queremos como para nuestro ambiente o las personas que nos rodean, eso también purifica, eso también cambia. So then you start spending maybe more time in nature, right? You start bringing your work maybe into nature, or working, what's it called when you work like in a different, like remote job, right? So you start to actually be like, actually, I would like something like that. I want that to be my reality. And then you can start to change it. Entonces, de ahí muchas veces vemos personas viviendo en diferentes realidades y empezamos a pasar más tiempo en la naturaleza. El gusto de hasta nuestro ambiente y nuestras amistades empieza a cambiar, right? So things can change about just like where we want to live. I didn't just end up here. This was a conscious decision of how I want to live my life, right? No es que terminé aquí así de un día al otro. Esa era una decisión consciente de cómo quiero vivir mi vida. And I'm still like, I want it to be a little bit more like, it's like, I'm still always evolving of like how I want my environment to be and how it can be even more conscious, right? Entonces siempre estoy evolucionando también cómo puedo tener mi ambiente hasta más consciente. Like, so we feel this desire for something to change, and then we change it, we move, we change our reality. We have that capacity. A lot of times we need to see options to even understand that could be our reality. Muchas veces necesitamos ver diferentes opciones para entender que hasta existen otras realidades, right? So that's the beginning of that. And then at the end of the day, we're all meant to be in certain places and in certain environments and do our work there, right?
So, and it's in flow if it's like the path that you need to walk, or what Krishna is saying to you, like for example the spices that you the machine that you
and you'll see it should feel like satisfaction, not and peace, not right. So then if we don't have like that reality, let's then go travel, meet people, see what other people are doing to create that reality that feels satisfactory to you and peaceful for you.
So
Uh-huh.
beginning with the peaceful, with the practice, with the with your own mind, of course, and then from there on, you can hear these kind of things that calling.
How are we supposed to hear anything if we're not silent? It takes many years to even be able to hear that more inner voice because we just have so many layers on top. Entonces sí hay que ver como muchas opciones, viajar, ver qué está haciendo otras personas para crear nuestra realidad que es para nosotros. Y debemos sentir paz, satisfacción, tranquilidad por donde estemos. That's like a human right to feel like okay where you are. Es un derecho humano sentirte bien donde estás, right? And then, pero claro, uno tiene que meditar muchos años para empezar a perfilar todas esas capas que están encima de esa vocecita interna para poder escuchar realmente qué es el camino verdadero para ti. Okay. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gurudeva Tilnandacharya Maharaj ki jai. Salasanga ki jai. Here we have more. Ciao, Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol, besitos. So much love.